Got so many goddamn
Like I
places
just felt weird saying that
Did you?
right afterwards because is that sexist?
It's sexual, maybe.
Sexual or like what am I allowed to say anymore?
Well, I don't know. If you worry about it too much, you won't say anything. Shh. I think it's that old thing of
What's politically correct anymore?
asking for
Being
forgiveness.
politically correct is incorrect.
I try not to worry about that. Yeah. Gets me in trouble all the time.
You didn't bring your makeup.
No makeup tonight. No.
No pearls.
No pearls. No, I've got 2 guy rolls this year. It's weird.
Do you?
Yeah.
So that's pantomime's getting ready? It's already been scripted? And,
Well, I do
cast?
get to dress as a giant poodle. That's kind of neat.
You'd make a good poodle.
Thank you. I'm the whole poodle. We have done those before. Oh gosh, one pantomime horse or donkey or camel. You gotta feel for the person in the back. Yeah.
Rob McKenzie once went as in a parade as Bruno the farting dinosaur.
Farting dinosaur?
With a guy in the front and a guy in the back.
Yeah.
But he had made it so the head would go up and down.
Right.
This would do, and it would go sideways and all that, and the mouth would open.
Ooh.
All with strings underneath. And the guy at the back, which was, anyway, I'll
Rick?
remember his name, Rick.
Had to be
One-eyed Rick, yeah. Had a little string attached to the tail, so every
Right.
so often they'd stop.
Yeah.
And he'd just sit down, so Rob couldn't go any further. And then he'd just stand up, and he'd lift up his tail, and he had this little container of powder
Oh yeah.
and a straw, and he would just a big puff of pink powder would come out of the dinosaur's anus.
Was there a noise to accompany it?
No, it's just
No.
a lot of laughter afterwards because we were behind the Shriners.
Oh right. Wow. They would have loved you.
Yeah, lots of Shriners, and then there was the Bruno the farting dinosaur
That Rob McKenzie.
with a guy at the front and a guy at the back. It's a hard thing to do.
Oh, it's not.
I was just the guy shoveling up the shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the refuse hadn't been any.
Nice.
Almost wiped out a kid too.
Huh.
Oh well, don't put a guy in the street with a shovel if he doesn't know how to use it.
That's right.
You ready for tonight?
Yeah, I'm impressed by this curtain. How long has that been there?
It's been here
All along?
Oh God, a while.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
yeah.
You just don't.
Do you know what's
close
happening
it.
on Thursday?
When?
This Thursday.
What?
It's the 16th anniversary of the first show that we put on at the Duncan Showroom.
Oh, 16th anniversary.
16 years we've been presenting.
Whoa. Wow. That's amazing. And was Willie the first show? No.
No,
That was something
no.
else. It was local, wasn't it?
No,
No?
it was three. I'll try to remember their name.
'Kay.
But Andrews and Lawrence
Oh.
were the opening act to the night, so they were actually the first musicians who
Right.
played there.
Nice.
Gospel,
Gospel, yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. With
Play
with
on
humor.
words.
Yeah. No, they're good.
For the love of words, as a matter of fact.
For the love of words, would you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put them on once during Gospel Music Day.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Oh, gosh, yeah. They're a bit blue.
Well, some people took it serious.
Yeah, yeah.
But we don't take you serious, do we?
Not ever. No, it's my trouble. Yeah. It's a curse.
How many years now?
For us?
Yeah.
It's almost fully 12.
Almost fully 12 years.
Yes.
12, almost full 12 years.
Almost a full 12 years.
We'll be in a lucky 13.
But I guess when you turn 12, you're actually turning 13. That's what you're trying to tell me.
No, I'm not. That someone else brought that one.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm only on the annuals.
Or you're an annual guy.
Yeah. Tim, I think, is the one who does that. Tim's the one that says you're on the.
Does he?
We're in our coming up our 13th year, going into our 13th year.
Right. Yeah.
Just Long John's 70th birthday. He turned 69, but his first birthday was when he was born, when he was 0. So his second birthday was when he turned 1. So it was technically his 70th birthday when he turned 69, right?
So his 20th annual 50th birthday
Mathematics
party.
at the Duncan Showroom is a very difficult digestion.
Right.
You got all that?
What?
Okay.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're on a broadcast live. You know, you guys this flow gets an awful lot of views.
Do we?
I used to think it was just John Hadfield looking back at it all.
Oh,
But it's
he
not.
would just play his own section
Yeah.
over and over again.
You can't tell if that happens. But it happens on open mic when he's here, too. So
Does he?
Either that or
John.
he has a lot of friends.
He's got, well, that too, don't you, John? Yeah.
I think what happens is his dad just plays it over and over and throws fake darts at it.
Right, there you go, spaghetti. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Throw spaghetti.
Ah.
Uncooked.
Spaghetti. Yeah.
No, it has to be cooked at stick. Anyway, we're going to start the show. Thank you very much, Bill Levity, for staying the course on this almost 12 full years.
Well, thank you, Mr. Longevity John. Yeah, it seems like no time passes because it's once a month, isn't it? And you just have to remember once a month.
We missed it it was July this year, though.
We did on purpose. Yeah.
I know. Well, it wasn't on purpose.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
We won't do that next year. Anyway, take it away, sir. Bill
Thank
Levity.
you. Mr. Longevity John. Oh, hello. I could swear I cleaned these, but now they're really foggy. Anyway, I brought an old friend, and I think I was at the Bucknucks, and I don't know if this quote comes from Lady Bucknuck or that other famous quotable guy, Mark Primer. But I think the quote was, "We buy books because we think we're buying the time to read them." That was you, wasn't it? I'm pointing at you, sorry. Yeah, sure. But that's true, I realized. Oh my God, I don't have time to read books. Are you kidding me? But I bought this one, even though I have it. I won't tell you what it is right away. Okay, because you're going to know. She stands up in the garden where she has been working and looks into the distance. She has sensed a shift in the weather. There is another gust of wind, a buckle of noise in the air, and the tall cypresses sway. She turns and moves uphill toward the house, climbing over a low wall, feeling the first drops of rain on her bare arms. She crosses the loggia and quickly enters the house. In the kitchen, she doesn't pause but goes through it and climbs the stairs, which are in darkness, and then continues along the hall, at the end of which is a wedge of light from an open door. She turns into the room, which is another garden, this one made up of trees and bowers painted over its walls and ceiling. The man lies on the bed, his body exposed to the breeze, and he turns his head slowly towards her as she enters. Every 4 days she washes his black body, beginning at the destroyed feet. She wets a washcloth and, holding it above his ankles, squeezes the water onto him, looking up as he murmurs, seeing his smile. Above the shins the burns are worst, beyond purple, bone. She has nursed him for months, and she knows the body well, the penis sleeping like a seahorse, the thin, tight hips. Hip bones of Christ, she thinks. He is her despairing saint. He lies flat on his back, no pillow, looking up at the foliage painted onto the ceiling, its canopy of branches, and above that, blue sky. She pours calamine in stripes across his chest, where he is less burned, where she can touch him. She loves the hollow below the lowest rib, its cliff of skin. Reaching his shoulders, she blows cool air onto his neck, and he mutters. "What?" she asks, coming out of her concentration. He turns his dark face with its gray eyes towards her. She puts her hand into her pocket. She unskins the plum with her teeth, withdraws the stone, and passes the flesh of the fruit into his mouth. He whispers again, dragging the listening heart of the young nurse beside him to wherever his mind is, into that well of memory he kept plunging into during those months before he died. Okay, what's the name of the book? Oh, you win the first loaf of bread. All right, good. We have our corporate sponsor tonight for this evening, Well Bread Bakery from Chemainus. All right, that's right. We're really we're taking the show up a notch. So the first loaf of bread goes to Rachel. Bob, why don't you come up and start us off? Because you got the chair warmed up first.
Okay.
Oh, and I should say it's rustic bread, isn't it, Mark? It's not just any bread. It's rustic. Thank you, Mark.
Thought you're up here to help me, Bill.
Sorry, Bill.
Don't worry, if I fall, I can just crawl.
Sorry, you all right? I think the
I'm fine. I'm really good.
curtain made it more dangerous.
Probably did. little you care.
Oh, no.
I think somebody wanted a loaf of bread.
Has your wife been abusing you, Bob?
No, my wife sent her apologies. She was hoping to come. We're moving house, or moving apartments, whatever you call it. So we're kind of wiped out. She was going to come tonight, but then she thought, oh, I'll get tempted by the drinking and eating part of it. And so she said, I can't afford that. I got to get up early. Anyway, she sends her best wishes. So these books, I've just discovered a new poet, fantastic, Marilyn Dumont. She's a Métis, been publishing for 20 years or something. But she's descended from Gabriel Dumont, who was a general of Louis Riel. And the story of Gabriel and Louis Riel is just a fantastic, moving story. You come from Manitoba, like I do to an extent, you know more about this. I don't know how many people know about it, but it's a great moving story. Anyway, that's her heritage, but she did come out to BC after a while. She had a rough childhood as a poor brown girl, worth nothing, humiliated in a southern Alberta white town. But she had some steel in her, I guess. And grew up and did well in school probably, and got out in the world and went through various stuff and started publishing poems in magazines. And then her first book came out in 1996. But she was probably 40 by that time, and here it is in a reissue. It's called A Really Good Brown Girl. And she was a mature poet by that time, and it was well received. Anyway, so in this book, there's early stuff in her life, stuff about her early life, about the humiliations and how she handled it, and it's really nice stuff. And then she gets older, and there's different things going on. So for this crowd, I thought I'd do the politics and the church and the language. The third poem's about language, words, stuff we love. She's really become a really solid poet. She's very serious about it. In fact, she made me think of Bianca Andreescu. She comes on really strong, and she's got a mixed game and absolutely determined. Anyway, here's a quick one. She got onto the wider issues rather than the personal issues as she got older. And here's a short political one, a letter to Sir John A. Macdonald. Oh, Bill Wilson. I'll give you a clue. Who's Bill Wilson? Politics. His daughter is Jody Wilson-Raybould. Bill once stood up and told the Prime Minister at that time, who was Pierre Trudeau, that he had two daughters back in BC who were growing up, and they both wanted his job. And Jody came pretty close. So there's a little reference to Bill Wilson here. So you're warned. Letter to Sir John A. Macdonald. Dear John, I'm still here and half-breed. After all these years, you're dead. Funny thing, that railway you wanted so badly, there was talk a year ago of shutting it down. And part of it was shut down, the Dayliner at least, from sea to shining sea. And you know, John, after all that shuffling us around to suit the settlers, we're still here, and Métis. We're still here after Meech Lake and one no-good-for-nothing Indian holding up the train. Skip a few lines. And Louis Riel is dead, but he just keeps coming back. In all the Bill Wilsons yet to speak out of turn or out of favor. Because you know as well as I that we were railroaded by some steel tracks that didn't last, and some settlers who wouldn't settle. And it's funny, we're still here, and calling ourselves half-breed. Now here's where she's sitting with the Roman Catholic Church. which was very important to the original Métis culture. They had priests there all the time. It was part of their culture. And it still hangs around, the Roman Catholic Church, with the native people. Look at Cowichan Reserve. Most people there still go. Anyway, here's Marilyn's take. Still unsaved soul. If I hear one more word about your Christian God, I'm going to howl. I'm going to crawl out of my heathen skin and trick you into believing I am the Virgin Mary and take you to bed. If I hear one more line about your white church, I'm going to start sitting and dancing with all my false gods in a giveaway dance and honor you with all the unclean sheets from my bed. If I hear one more blessed thought or witness one more holy act, I'm going to throw up 35 years of communion hosts from this still unsaved soul. And on the subject of language, this is a two-pager. There's a long first stanza, and then a shorter middle stanza, and a shortest of all, last stanza. The Devil's Language. 1. I have since reconsidered Eliot and the Great White Way of reading English, standard, that is. The Great White Way has measured, judged, and assessed me all my life by its lily-white words, its picket fence sentences, and manicured paragraphs. One wrong sound, and you're shelved in the native literature section. Resistance writing, a mad Indian, unpredictable, on the warpath, native ethnic poems, native ethnic protest. The Great White Way could silence us all if we let it. It's had its hand over my mouth since my first day of school, since Dick and Jane, ABCs and fingernail checks, syntactic laws, using the wrong order or register, and you're a dumb Indian, dumb, drunk, or violent. My father doesn't read or write the King's English. Says he's dumb, but he speaks Cree. How many of you speak Cree? Correct Cree, not correct English. Grammatically correct Cree. Is there one? Is there two? Is there a received pronunciation of Cree? Is there a modern Cree usage? The chief's Cree, not the King's English. As if violating God the Father in standard English is like talking backwards. As if speaking the devil's language is talking backwards. Back to your mother's sound, your mother's tongue, your mother's language. Back to that clearing in the bush, in the tall black spruce. 3. Near the sound of horses and wind, where you sat on her knee in a canvas tent, and she fed you bannock and tea and syllables that echo in your mind now that you can't make the sound of that voice that rocks you and sings you to sleep in the devil's language. Well, that's my 5 minutes. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. There's one I'll give you later, I think, called Circle the Wagons. Another one, Leather and Naugahyde. Who knows what Naugahyde is?
I thought it was a kind of leather.
Man-made leather. I'd never heard of it, but my wife picked me up. So that's a lovely little short poem.
Artificial cows.
Oh, geez, I got to read that now. Here it is. She's older. She meets a treaty guy, like we call it a status Indian. You call him in BC, I guess. So I'm having coffee with this treaty guy from up north. We're laughing at how crazy the Munia are in the city, and conversation comes around to where I'm from, as it does in underground languages, in the oblique way it does to find out someone's status without actually asking. And knowing this, I say I'm Métis, like it's an apology. And he says, like he forgives me, like he's got a big heart, and mine's pumping diluted blood. And his voice has sounded well fed up, has sounded well fed up until this point. But now it goes thin, like he's across the room taking another look. And when he returns, he's got this look that says that he's leather and I'm Naugahyde. So, life of a Métis girl grown up.
And say her name again, please.
Marilyn Dumont, and Dumont is that family name. And there's a Métis girl in our grandmother in our drumming group, and she's fairly recently, finally found out that she's a relative because they're both descended from the famous Gabriel, or Gabriel's uncle. Oh, the last thing in the book of interest to BC people is that eventually she moves to BC, and there's a few small cutting poems about what it's like here compared to there. They're cool also. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Put in a handrail. And look at, he piles all this stuff here just to scupper you.
There should be a pile of cushions at you.
Well, in all the years I've known Bob, I've never heard an unkind phrase come out of his lips, so to have him say, little that you'd care. And I realize, I'm sorry, Bob, I did say that I'd come and help you move, which I have not done. So Mark has a lot of free time, for instance. And some of these guys... and some of these people might even be retired. I don't know. I'm sorry that I forgot. Oh.
I told you I'd call you, Bill.
Oh, well, no, you're being too kind now. Maybe you did. That lets me out the hook. Oh. Really?
Within the complex?
No, we're moving within my circle of Duncan. We lived behind the high school on Festerford Street, and then we moved about half a mile over to where we're living now. And now we're moving about a quarter of a mile back. So we're just looking down on from Bray Street down onto the railway station.
Oh,
So we're really circling around.
you're on Upper Bray.
Yeah, Bray and Furnish.
Nice. Oh.
An old
Oh, it's an older building, isn't it? Yeah. And what's it called?
the Cedars.
The Cedars. Ooh.
It's on Bray, but it's
We'll be expecting the cocktail party invitations. Yeah. Gord, what do you think? You've seen how it works? You want to come up and give it a whirl? Gord's new to it is Gord, isn't it? It's a chance I'd get it wrong. Gord is new to our circle.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, John. Well, this is my first little go at this. So you can just throw tomatoes and things at me anytime. This is a little excerpt from a book called The Wine Writer by John Merlot, who writes for Hidden Wine Region Review. I swirl the Perndle. Its enchanting bouquet fills both nostrils. I tilt the flute to my lips, let a few drops of the haughty nectar roll over my taste buds, then straighten the flute and watch the fingers perform a slow massage. Satisfied, I lean back, cant in again, and drain the whole thing. Another wonderful moment in a wine taster's life. My education in wine was informal and spontaneous. I began enological instruction at age 15 and picked up the finer points with little difficulty. Friends, concerned I was off to a late start, undertook an ambitious project to bring me up to date quickly and even shared with me their established roster of suppliers. At the special tutorial price of 95 cents for a 26-ounce bottle, that's 750 milliliters in today's patois, who could afford to turn down an education? Catawba, Niagara 9.99, Kelowna Red, Marble Canyon, memorable appellations and wonderful vintages. We tasted and tasted, but we're too young to know how to eject it properly. One or two of my buddies could even inhale. On the few occasions when we lost the corks, our policy was do not decant, but instead consume the remainder while it was still fresh. Not much time passed from one tasting to another. Those were heady days. To those who may think wine is a gateway to harder drink, I would offer that any education is better than no education. If a little learning is a dangerous thing, as Alexander Pope claimed in 1709, then less learning is even more dangerous. I was not anxious to lead a dangerous life, so I applied Pope's fundamental axiom, and the simple joys of the vine that many take for granted were now mine. At times I became a little too educated, but everything comes with a price. Obtaining wine at a young age was generally not a problem. With bits of allowances, milk money, and other assorted revenues, we pooled together enough financing for a bottle or two of the finest 95 cent Pinage money could buy. Often the husband of the sister of one of our wine tasting council would volunteer or be pressed into service for educational purposes only. One of us, or all of us, would lurk in the shadows, wait in dark cars, or hang about someone's house, anticipating the arrival of the sister's husband. We thanked him profusely, offered gracious remarks on his superior intelligence, and pledged lifelong homage to his kindness, then wander off to further our education. A house on the east side of downtown was a popular retreat. The area was quiet and tolerated a certain amount of rowdiness. Few people noticed as we walked along the street late at night and arced empty Pinot Noir Bluget bottles high over the street where they fell on the asphalt and lay in shimmering tinkles. The title of this excerpt is The Screw Top, Legend or Myth. The screw top is one of man's more remarkable inventions. A turn of the wrist can open the portal to countless pleasures. However, there was once no such thing as a screw top. Legends of wine and its culture abound, and the following is no less a legend in spite of its simple subject and the effects of time. Credit for the invention of the screw top may belong to none other than Gaston Laguerchière, chief of an exploration crew in the country of the remote Peace River, a region, oddly enough, not known for vineyards. Laguerchière developed the technique of running his pocket knife blade or his thumbnail around the neck of an unopened bottle of wine. With a flourish worthy of a prince, he grabbed the top with his hand and twisted off the entire neck. A member of the crew jokingly threw in the comment that Gaston would yell, "Screw the top." This joker often teased Laguerchière. After the top was off, he would hoist the bottle to his lips and drain out as much wine as he could. Folklore says he also used the same technique with whiskeys. Laguerchière took a break from his customary tradition after almost bleeding to death during a wine tasting marathon at the Fairway Grand Marnier in Paramount Springs. Statisticians and chroniclers of world-famous Canadians, a small, adamant, admired, eclectic bunch, usually add Laguerchière to their lists. The screw top is an application of a simple machine. The screw is essentially an inclined plane stretched along and around a shaft. One of the earliest recorded applications of the screw was a screw pump for lifting water to irrigate King Sennacherib's hanging gardens in Babylon in the 7th century BC. By the 1st century AD, screws were used in wine presses. By 2000 AD, tax departments had perfected the device. Thank you.
Stay there for a minute, Gord. How are you with the gluten?
Gluten?
Yeah, you okay with gluten?
Gluten, yeah.
Okay, stay there.
Wow.
For showing such grace under your virginal trip to Flow. This is for all the YouTubers out there. We present you with this loaf of
Wow.
bread.
Well,
from
thank you very
Well Bread
much.
Bakery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Encore for the spot. Thank you, sir. Nicely done. Oh, we could go a long way with this. John just showed me a text about somebody asking him about doing theater sports at the showroom. You guys keen for that? We do another night? Yeah, we don't want to quite interrupt this thing with that. Keith, we haven't seen you for a while. I know you always like going early because then you don't have to sit and fret. Oh, you do? Well, we don't want you to go after you read. Yeah.
Yeah, I do get nervous. I've commented on that before, like sick, nervous. But tonight, I was going to get some things off my chest a little bit. And I was just going to start by asking for a tiny bit of audience participation. I've never done this, but could you, if you don't mind, could you raise your hand if you believe to any extent at all, really, in karma? And by my definition, if you have even fear about karma, should I, is my ass covered on this? Then you should raise your hand. So it looked like a majority. So it's not often that I get in conversations, with people, especially about politics. But I have at times been in, these days it's kind of hard to avoid at times. And I've had people say to me after a conversation or partway through, "My God, you like Donald Trump." And my response is, "No, you're not getting it. You're not getting it." Let's say we could talk about a fictional or semi-fictional country, a republic that has been a country, a republic, for only about 240 years, which really, by world standards, I think most of us know, is an infant, really. And let's say that in that 240 years, this republic managed to squeeze in the kidnapping and enslavement of Africans, and then for the next 240 years, after using them up as slaves, just treated them like shit. Managed to squeeze in the decimation of their indigenous American Indians, and then for the next the next couple of hundred years, since they started that 150 years or so, did the same thing to them. Incinerated 360,000 innocent civilians as they woke up in the morning. Depending on estimates, 3 to 5 million people in Vietnam killed. Have managed in my whole lifetime, which is 63 years in a few weeks, to occupy some country or other for every nanosecond of my life, and usually leave that country decimated. Managed to hang on to a president who shoved a big stogie up the growler of a 20-year-old intern before he popped the load on her dress and then lied about it. Another president, a more recent one, second to last one, not the current, but the one before, who deported more people from the country than all of the other presidents of the 20th century combined. Also conducted record numbers of drone strikes which killed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of innocent civilians, unauthorized, illegal drone strikes. Also, in an act of pure vengeance, invaded a sovereign country in order to shoot a father in the eye through the eyeball in front of his children, and then had his guys put a bullet in the wife's leg just so that she couldn't leave the bedroom. So I ask you rhetorically, because the audience participation section's over, I ask you rhetorically, does this sound like a country, a republic with good karma? Does it sound like a republic that deserves something better than what they've been getting for the last 3 years? Does it sound like a republic that deserves yet another figurehead with mocha sweetness and pandering to tick off the boxes of consoler-in-chief, while the same machinations take place behind the scenes? I'm going to suggest that they deserve something more along the lines of a funhouse mirror that reflects back at them every insidious thing that they have been since their inception and continue to be. And I will confess that for every second of the last 3 years, I have indulged in deep, deep pleasure at every second of suffering that has gone on in that country. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Well done. Well, I just have to say, and this is not to comment on your piece, which was quite good, but what it did make me wonder if any of the ladies had ever uttered to their significant other, "Honey, I just need a minute to clean my growler." You know what I mean? You probably no. Well, that's a new one. That's great. I like that. But you gotta find the right place to use it. It's probably not an everyday term. It's like your good silverware, isn't it? Can't use that word every day. Thanks, Keith. That was very good. Just a minute, honey. I'll be right out there. If Deb, speaking of Deb, come on. Yeah. Now that you're chuckling, come on up. Come on.
So I don't know. I raised my hand to karma, but I think it's complicated. And Bob, I really love Marilyn DeMont's poetry. I was lucky enough actually to meet her. She came and read at a course that I took in Calgary, and I wrote about her. And there's a whole story there, but I'm going to save that for next month. But yes, also to The Devil's Language and The Big White Way and the picket fence, white picket fence sentences. But guess what I'm reading? And yes to that too. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. So reconsider that. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights and one night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back on the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time for yet 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And indeed, there will be time to wonder, do I dare? And do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. For I have known them all already, known them all. Have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room, so how should I presume? And I have known the eyes already, known them all, the eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase, and when I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out the butt ends of my days and ways? And how should I presume? And I have known the arms already, known them all, arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. And should I then presume? And how should I begin? Shall I say I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows? I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas, and the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head, grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker. I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker. And in short, I was afraid. And would it have been worth it after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me? Would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead. Come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one settling a pillow by her head should say, that is not what I meant at all. That is not it at all. And would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile? After the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more, it is impossible to say just what I mean. But as if a magic lantern threw the nerves in patterns on a screen, would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. I am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, differential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed, almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. I grow old. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows and the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea by sea girls wreathed in seaweed, red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown.
Sorry, what was the name of the piece that it came from? The Love Song of Krufok. Nice. Serious question. Was T.S. Eliot related to George Eliot, who was not a George? Were they in the same? I knew that, but I thought maybe the last name was right, but both names were pseudonymish. No, George, I mean. George Eliot. I wasn't sure if it was just the first name that she changed, whether she was an Eliot. Anyway, that's an obscure question, sorry. I don't know. Has anybody identified the theme running through the night? Sometimes we have accidental themes. Language, thank you. There's no more bread, sorry. You just get the prize. Knowing you gave a good answer. You gave a good effort. And, I was just chuckling about, Keith, again, about your piece. It's true, isn't it? That great reality show, The Farce that's going on. Well, that's the wonderful thing about it. It is so honest, and that's what makes it funny, is they're not really hiding anything. It's happening right in front of your face. And poor old Canada, all we can muster up is a brown-faced pantomime. We're just not kicking it like they are down there. Who would like to go now? See, nobody really volunteers. Rachel has a story about all these great walks they've been going on lately and the pictures they've been taking. I know. Okay. John, come on up. You got such a great haircut. I need a boyish haircut.
Maybe my first clue in the barber shop was they were all kids. Or I should have paid attention. Oh, thank you, Jim. I was thinking there's a book written about, I think it was a woman wrote it, about how the U.S. will always vote in a president that pretty much represents the state of the nation, or, you know, how the people are feeling at the present time. And so, as far as karma, I was thinking, I think it's yet to come, you know, like, he's just setting them up real good. I mean, you didn't mention the Civil War, which was one of the bloodiest. I think they're, oops, I hit the wrong button. All right, so I'm still doing cab stories. And I also, because of, as I told you last month, and my mind started to formulate how they could all run together and how I could write something episodal, which I thought I'm being awfully ambitious. And maybe, and when I hear each of what you read from other people, I think, you know, I shouldn't even open my mouth, really, you know. But I'm an idiot, so I'm gonna do it. So this piece is called Michelle. I think she's going to be a main character. The first time he picked her up, she'd flagged him from the corner she worked. He had noticed her before. It was tough not to. She was tall, head and shoulders above the crowd, and dressed elegantly. On cold, damp nights like tonight, she wore a sea blue woolen coat that covered her long, thin legs down below her knees. She wore a pair of bright red high heels, as if she wasn't tall enough. She had turned up her collar so it framed her beautiful face and mischievous eyes. A mist of light rain in her hair sparkled, evoking a halo effect. He looked over the back of the seat as she climbed in. She looked up and gave him this big smile. "I'm going to North Van," she said, "by 3rd and Lonsdale." It was late, past 3 a.m. He turned on the meter, pulled out, and headed for the bridge. He checked her out in the mirror in glances, not really believing what her smile had revealed. Her eye teeth were prominent and grew slightly forward of her top front teeth. As a kid, he'd fallen hard for a smile like that. It was on this little girl he'd met at the swimming pool. She was cute as a button in a threadbare summer shift and red plastic sandals. Her family was poor and lived near the pool. She always had a bit of a dirty face. She'd taken to walking him partway home. They would hold hands and talk shyly. He kind of felt sorry for her and protective at the same time. He loved it when she looked up at him and at him with that smile. In Japan, they call it yeba, and it's considered a sexual turn-on. What could he have known then? "You mind if I smoke?" she asked, rummaging through her purse. Most people didn't ask, they just lit up. He said he didn't mind and watched her fumble for a while until he offered her one of his. She said thanks and leaned forward to take it. She had found her lighter, and after she lit hers, she reached forward to light his. She sat back as she inhaled, and he cracked a window. "How did your night go?" he asked. "It's been kind of slow for me." "Yeah," she said, "for me too. You never know, do you? Sometimes quiet nights can turn into surprises. Not tonight, though." "I'm Michelle, by the way. And you?" "I'm a John," he said. She laughed. "Michelle, ma belle, I love that song. Won't forget your name for sure, nor you mine, I bet." She laughed again. There's that smile. The rain was drumming on the car, and the windshield wipers were clacking in time. There's something terribly intimate about two strangers in a car late at night. The sounds from the road, the water swishing on the fenders, the low mumble from the radio as guys were booking away or acknowledging trips from the dispatcher. Something really comforting about it all. There was a certain affinity between them, each working the street in their own fashion. He looked at her again in the mirror and was struck at how poised and beautiful she was. Not your average streetwalker. He was curious and wanted to ask her how come she was doing this, but wasn't sure how to approach it. Somehow she was already on a pedestal. He was shy and felt awkward talking to her. She seemed so self-assured. On the other hand, she was a hooker, and why should he feel shy? They had pretty tough skins, probably been asked a whole lot worse things. Why did he think she had any kind of sensibilities at all? But she was a girl, a woman who had chosen to work the street. Though it was possible, he thought, that maybe she was working for someone, some pimp. Maybe she didn't have much of a choice. Maybe she was a drug addict. A lot of them were. People's lives could be mysterious. What was more mysterious to him was why he had such a soft spot for her. I've noticed you more than a few times on that street corner, he said, but you seem to like working random days. I drive nights pretty regular. The Georgia Hotel is one stand I like to sit on when I have to. I've noticed you coming and going from there, too. He hoped it was a good way to start the conversation. I'm going to university, she said. I have some night classes. Doing this, I can afford to go. It also afforded me a chance to buy my own condo, so it works for me. Oh, he said. Didn't really see that coming. It did explain a few things about her, though. So you just work on your own, you mean? I don't have a pimp, if that's what you're getting at, she said. Can it be more dangerous on the street without one, he asked. I mean, what if you get in trouble? I can look after myself, she said. I have more trouble from the pimps than I do from the Johns, though. No offense. None taken. They finished their cigarettes in silence and were nearing her intersection. Is there somewhere more specific I can drop you, he asked. No, on the corner is fine, she said. He got the impression she didn't really want him to know exactly where she lived. She was street smart, for sure. She reached into her purse and pulled out a $20 for a $15 trip. That's fine, she said. Oh, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, he said. He reached up to the visor and took down a business card. He wrote John Cab on it and his car number and handed it to her over the seat. Yeah, if you ever need help or a ride somewhere, just call the number and ask for a personal. If I'm available, I'll come get you. If you say it's for Michelle, I'll know you're okay. If you say it's for Michelle Smith, that means you got trouble, and I'll come right away. He smiled at her. She smiled back with those teeth and said, thank you. I appreciate that. And then she was gone into the night. The end. Was that way more than 5 minutes?
Oh, it's great. It was good. That was just enough.
Was just enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can take out the disclaimer at the beginning.
You always stretch it out a bit.
Okay.
You know how Darren Gavin's voice worked so well in the Night Stalker? I think you could probably narrate your own series.
Narrate it. Oh, like it was, so it's not video, you mean?
Oh, no, video, but there's animated, but sometimes the narrator's voice comes in.
Animated. Well, just so you know, too, and thank you all, and again, it's an inspiration to come here every month, but I have 4,694 words towards the whole story of trying to stick it all together. So I think she's definitely gonna play a part. That's just the first time he met her, so anyway, thank you.
I'd like to see her again. I'd like to see her. One of our favorites, well, regulars who we haven't seen for a while, he discovered his Métis blood. And I think for Biron, it sort of elevated him a bit. Now he doesn't come and hang around with us schlubs anymore. Or maybe he's busy. We haven't seen Byron in quite a long time. Mr. Miller. You think it's what? He's just busy?
No, it's because I think it's because he found his mother.
Oh, so he's visiting his mom, his biological mom.
Mother's 96.
Oh, so he's got to go and visit her.
His adopted mother at age 70.
Oh, right.
He found his biological
Wow.
at his age of 70.
That's pretty amazing. So you got to get all the time and you can.
Well, I don't know if that's why, but
It makes a good story. Yeah. All right, well, we'll give him a bit of slack. Oh, really? Comes to the market? Sure. Hmm.
You feel jilted.
Well, he doesn't stop eating bread, does he? God. Well, we should torture Mark by making our corporate sponsor by making him go last. Mr. French? Oh, no, I said his name. He's up. Sorry. Andrew has to go last now. Oh, okay. Come on up. Well-bred baker.
You know, in spite of being a conflicted person, when I write, I don't really do conflict well at all. So I happen to have written this down just this afternoon, which was, the thing about conflict is you put a character in a bind, and for whatever reason, when I write, I often don't do that. So I think I'm gonna, even if this poem is shit, I'm gonna hold on to this idea of being caught between a rock and a hard place, because being caught between a rock and a hard place is, well, it certainly was, that was how Well-Bred got started. I was, I didn't want to go back to work for someone else because I knew I would get fired. And the affair that I had been having was over, so I didn't have that. And so I was just like, I really needed to do something of the moment quickly before I, killed myself. So being caught between a rock and a hard place is actually a really good thing. So this is, I wrote this, it's called The Pain in Kindness. I was asked to supply 2 bags of salt. I would rather have plucked out my own eyes than help a man who sulks like a toddler. My difficulty, was not that he asked me, he whom I would have flatly refused, but rather it was his wife, and I like his wife, while despising him. I grew angrier and angrier. Why ask this of me? I wondered if she knew that he had been unfaithful, that I could not happily help her if it also meant helping him. I did so, but it was a hellish menace to me and made me miserable as all get out. Who dares ask me to be kind? The gods? Why her? I would sooner kill than feel I am being used for an ignoble purpose. And yet I love her, but within that it rubs. Fuck. I am yet so bitter to have been asked. Bitter like salt. She should not have asked.
Well done.
And the thing that Keith said about America, that's certainly true. I always, as much as I loved, to hear Obama speak, man, the guy was so slick, so smooth. And I part of me hated it because I felt like I was being manipulated the way a girl who's, gone to the salon and gotten her nails done and her hair done and her boobs done and everything and got 4-inch heels and she's walking down the hallway or where have you. And I know that I'm just being jacked around by my innate love of those things. And Obama, who is a honey talking machine, yeah, I hated that. It made me suspicious of Obama. And I certainly, I don't think I've ever believed that it's, it's tempting probably right now for a lot of people to think, oh, Democrats is the answer. Well, no, Democrats were fucking asses for years, and so were Republicans. And then you got some doofus like Michael Moore, and every election cycle comes along and he goes, you got to vote this way, you got to vote that way. And the answer is not actually this or that. It's like the third party. And people say, well, that's wasting your vote. But if you plant today, you get to harvest 20 years from now. So that's how I feel about politics.
Can you say that phrase again? Honey what? The way Obama talks? That was a good phrase.
But he's, I don't know, it's honey words. They're beautiful words. He's so eloquent.
What was the phrase?
Yeah.
Honey's better.
Yeah.
It's eluding me now.
Yeah.
And why, the second question, is that all right?
Sure.
Why did you despise the man? Not because he was unthinkable. You just despised the man.
No, I think for the poetic purposes, it was like, I mean, that's not, in poetry terms, like, I mean, you're never gonna, you're just gonna compress. And that's not, that doesn't really tell the whole story, right? But for poetic terms.
You're going to have to watch the YouTube video.
Go back to the
I
law
know.
hard
I
place.
gotta get that phrase. That's a beauty.
That works.
Yeah, well, again, that, like, I don't know, it's oftentimes like I can write something, I can be so fluid and smooth and I can throw things in, but when it comes to actual conflict, I'd be like, well, what's the, like, I haven't, just felt like, I know what conflict looks like in someone else's work or on a cinema screen, but I haven't written a lot of it myself, so it was just felt like it was kind of doing something new.
It's a good exercise. He's feeling conflicted about conflict. That's probably a good exercise. Thank you, sir. Your seat's still warm. That's great. No, I didn't. It's just warm. Did he fart? No.
You would have heard on this thing.
The honey, the Naugahyde. Yes, I will go back and look for that phrase. Was that part of what you were saying too, Keith? It was about Obama, is because you knew the machinations were still going on behind the scenes.
Well, I'm glad you asked me a question, Bill, because I was going to then, I've never done this before, but at the end I was going to say, can I just get up there for another 60 seconds to qualify? And that is that I am an absolute super passionate person about free speech and freedom of expression. And in fact, it's the people who try to suppress that, I can almost bring out a violence in me.
Yes.
Having said that, I just personally don't think that politics is the best thing. I won't speak for anyone else, or I'm suppressing. The best thing for me to use that time up there for politics. For me, what I said tonight was not so much about politics as it was about an existential pain. That I hope that if anyone was, thinking, oh, politics, just what we need to make.
No.
It was not meant to be politics.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, thank you for letting me do that and to say this now. Thanks.
Oh, no, it was a perfectly appropriate piece and very concise and good.
The answer to your question that you just gave me, the word would just be hypocrisy, which is
Yeah.
not a good, something I'm not an advocate of.
No, and he did have the honey coming out of his lips. Oh, no, thank you. That was a really good piece. Who have we forgotten? Oh, look, it's Mr. French. Andrew? How long do we have to miss you guys for? Surely you'll be back by next flow. Oh, gosh, that's okay then. You get to see the leaves change. I envy that. Is that all right? I envy the leaves.
No, it's all good. So I was a couple of nights ago. I was gonna sit down to write, and Rachel showed me. Do you guys remember David Bell? He was tall dude. Yeah. Yeah. He just won a weightlifting competition, and she showed me a clip of him in like the leotard and like lifting. So I wrote this because that's like our best ambassador for poetry. Everyone else is kind of just weak-wristed.
Does he look a lot different now than when we saw him a year ago? Like, did he put on a lot of masks?
No, I don't think so. He looks just about the same. Yeah. But yeah. And the other weird thing is like weightlifting. I don't know. I find it just a curious occupation or activity. So kind of Sisyphusian, but also it's weird because I was trying to write it, and it's not as if the barbell or whatever it is like a opponent. So it's not, I don't know, it was weird to try to find words to figure out how to write about it. But yeah, so here it goes. If only like David Bell, who sees a cluster of weights and makes it work, an affair of muscle, rips and tears and testing, learning to meet heaviness with precise movements, make use of discomfort, use of dopamine, adrenaline, and increments. He advances and wavers and persists, making a ceremony of repetition, sterilizing each machine after every trial, and taking each ache as a token of progress. Of all others, I could think of no better ambassador of poetry than him, working the weights, curious and trying to outdo himself with each new strain, the buckling knees just a preliminary. Oh.
So he does deadlift.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, but yeah. And it's cool. I think he's still reading too, because he used to be, when we were doing the Cafe La Vie thing, he was there constantly. Then he started coming here, so he's writing pretty prolifically. Yeah, whatever that word is. Yeah.
Is he still going to Victoria to read?
I don't know. I actually haven't caught up with the dude for a bit. Yeah. Sook's a ways out. He has a really nice property out there, though, so. Yeah. These are just, I got 3, so that's 1. And they're just all about people. So the next is a dude that I see on the street every once in a while, and he's just a really pessimistic person. And it's too bad because I am too, but the way he does it is, maybe it's like mirroring, so I don't like him because he does it, because it's like me, or it's just his approach. But yeah, so this is about him. Yeah, it's called The Archangel of Grimness. God bless him, that luckless sop who came upon what the whole deal's about and started to expound. He was intelligent, inclined to a glass half empty mentality, and altogether too tender for the daily grind, which makes for a dark triad. As a specialist, he spoke to me of suffering, about its source, its manifestations, its hired muscle and mystic elements, which he stewed over until it all boiled down to realizing that everything is of no use. The future is fucked and we're no longer 18. Just like the Cold War, everything is on the edge of annihilation and things are only getting hotter. And on top of degradation, the robust creativity people display in their manners of cruelty. On top of snowbird friends and fanny pack company, Cain-assisted pilgrimages to piss-poor coffee shops and picked over thrift stores. Any move to some semblance of excellence is stunned from the start. And it's all meaningless. Utterly meaningless. Flamboyantly meaningless. So curious and heartbreakingly so, that it'll wrench you asunder before you have time to tie your boots. But it also motivates his mood and endorses his struggles. Until all that overcast contemplation of nothinglessness becomes a source of life unto itself, which propels him in a frenetic energy, an exuberant passion born of fatigue. My friend, you're a dark angel and you smell of sulfur most every day. Let whatever propels you do the steering, and wake up every day all the more curious, like life itself was some grand audition for the surreal. The thing that got me is, completely talks about meaninglessness all the time, but derives meaning from it. So it's kind of like someone saying nothing is true and then take that as a truth. Yeah, I think that's what got me about it. But okay, I got one more, then we'll be done. Reishi, remember when we were called out as one of the cuter ones on a peripheral Tim Hortons today? We cut a fine cloth, a vinyl red raincoat, and an officer's green, both bought in an Olympian thrift store during a rainstorm in July, when we were both caught unprepared with soaking clothes and gummy smiles. And with them in tow, today we took a drive in the afternoon, inching our way westward through switchbacks and provincial parks, past fairy trees and bucolic scenes until we got to where we had to walk. Remember, we walked across corroded trails in the full-length sombrio, with a small person's backpack and skipping stones, caves and cliffs, hieroglyphics and seagulls. The sound of rocks as the wave recedes, your favorite sound. And then the ride back home, peanuts and water and balls of sand, until we made it to town, thinking out loud if Beach House was a depressed person's music and if Bill's fans still upheld good decorum. An evening Epicurus would tip his cap to. Let such memories mark us, curve our style to meet the terrain, so we can move as a wild child through the exposure, curious about each little thing, and upon introspection, finding ourselves equally strange. And for most everyone else, it was just another work day, wading through traffic and preoccupied with eliminating lunch, eating dinner and setting an alarm. And there we were, moving westward in the early afternoon and back east by dusk, with no other concerns save kissing by the clock tower, achieving some state of grace, and regarding with wonder what the waves leave on our shore. Thank you.
Wow, did I miss anybody? Okay, you know when it's like summer and it's so hot and the steam is rising off the pavement? Yeah. That time of year? See that? It ain't happening. I know. No, it's steaming. Where Mark has sat is warm, but where Rachel sits, it's warmer. I don't think I'm ever going to warm my own chair again. I'm just going to, anytime you get up to read, I'll be sitting in your chair, keeping it warm for you. I used to, Mark, don't go there. No, no, no. Girls don't. No. That's, oh. Oh. I can't hear such blasphemy. Okay. I thought I would, oh God, I just get cloudier. I thought I would bookend the evening by doing another short excerpt of a book I won't have time to read. Normally when I go into the Buck Nuck, I go through a few pages as my normal way of finding a book. But I had no time, so I grabbed the English Patient with a new cover, and I grabbed this book, probably because I liked Water for Elephants, and this has an elephant on the front. So I'm just hoping this is a good book, and I don't know. So I'm just going to share the first paragraphs with you. Hopefully we won't end on a downer. The Beauty of the Beasts. Tales of Hollywood's Wild Animal Stars. So I thought, that's going to be all right. Oh, we starting into the book or the prologue? I don't know. Anyway, thank you all for tonight. What a great collection of readings. Wonderful stuff. Thank you. I think thanks are also due to the French Twizel team for their adventures at Café Lévis, and they are not carrying on this winter. But thank you too for adding to the spoken word scene in Duncan so nicely. I only made it once, but I knew it was a lovely place to gather. This chapter is called Buona Simba. The grass was damp from the early morning dew as we sat on a small hillock against a majestic old acacia tree. Zamba, my lion, lay sphinx-like beside me, scanning the African plain 1,000 feet below. Pam, a mere pixie of a child actress, sat close, nestled against my shoulder. One of my companions was huge and powerful, the other innocent and trusting. A warm breeze blew across the ridge. The silence was broken only by the lion's heavy breathing. It was time. I got up and dusted off my jeans, and we headed up the slope. Zamba walked between Pam and me, with Pam's hand resting gently on his thick golden mane. She could barely see over his back. We stopped under the swaying arches of a giant yellow fever tree. Just ahead were the camera and crew, quietly waiting to film. For the first time ever, a 68-pound, 9-year-old child wrestling a full-grown 528-pound lion. I knelt down beside Pam, and our eyes met. Pam, you must remember the things I've taught you, especially that Zamba is very strong, and that you must never get under him, since his weight is too much for you. Pam's eyes twinkled, and she broke into a smile. Don't worry, we'll do just fine. Oh, well, I think it's going to be fine. Be a lovely book. What do you think? Does it sound like something you'd read? A 68-pound child and a 528-pound lion. Of course you would. It's darn exciting. Are there appies involved? There should be appies, yes. That's right. John's going to be famous. He's treating us to appies as well, aren't you, John? No, we should go and let's have some drink. Now, Gord, this was something we do on Tuesdays. We go over to the bar and talk further. And I don't know if you... Appies are half price. Appies are 2 for 1 or half price, depending on how you look at it. That's right. As long as you buy 2, they're half price. That's right. That's how you put it. And I don't know what theater sports are, so I don't even know how to start that discussion, whether there should be another night like that. I think, of course, they do improvisation and... That's all I know. Oh, you've done it? Oh, I haven't done it. So you could give us an idea. Oh, you've watched it. She likes to watch. I'd like to sit in your seat as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for a lovely evening, and hopefully we'll see you next month again. And to all those in YouTube land, and thanks from our corporate sponsor, Well Bred Bakery in Chemainus. Hey!
Well spent.
Well, that wasn't it? You got a lot of mileage out of that.